Match 32 of Cricket World Cup 2019 is in the can, and Australia wrapped it up winning by 64 runs, beating the hosts of this tournament here at the home of cricket, Lords, joined today on the review by Michael Clarke and Michael Atherton, the two Michaels. You are smiling so broad.
One of us is smiling a lot more than the other one. For now, I'm smiling. I know well, it does count for something. It's an important game, but it's not a semi-final or a final. But I'm just really impressed with the way Australia played from ball one today. Their approach, the team they picked, their attitude. Every part of Australia today was exactly what I think of this team. If they want to win the World Cup, they had to play like they did today, and I'm over the moon.
I've kept a close eye on you, Athers. Most of the afternoon, that frown has been etched into your forehead.
Well, it's a galling defeat for England. You know, they've beaten this team time and time again in the last 2 or 3 years. I think they've beaten Australia in the last 6 ODIs, 10 out of the last 11. They whitewashed them here, 5-0, only 12 months ago. But all that counts for nothing now. This was the game that counted, this was the game that mattered, and Australia have won.
Absolutely. So impressive to see what Australia did here today. 285 for 7 with Finch scoring 100 exactly off 116 balls. Kerry with 38 there, not out. Over 50 overs, Wokes taking 2 wickets. Stokes, Moeen and Archer also contributing. And then on the England side of the score sheet, only Stokes putting up an 89 there, the rest of them in the 20s. And Behrendorff, of course, the guy, it was basically Behrendorff day out here in London. A 5 only the 10th person to get one out here at Lord's. But David Warner, the guy who came in and started things off at almost exactly the right tone, it felt, for Australia, hey?
Yeah, well, after losing the toss and being sent in conditions where the ball moved around, swung and seamed, I thought Warner and Finch were exceptional. Again, England were too short, so yes, the batting deserves credit, but I thought England were too short, too wide, gave Finch and Warner too much width, and they made them pay. You know, again, we see the confidence in David Warner walking out and playing with that aggressive attitude today.
We spoke about this at the mid-innings live, and the line from Nasser Hussain at that stage was simply that England didn't make enough of the fact that they had that start with the ball in these conditions. How do they address that going into 2 more very challenging games?
What England haven't done very well so far, or as well as some other teams, is assess the conditions. They had a bit of a stoppy, grippy pitch up at Headingley against Sri Lanka, and they didn't really cope with that very well. And today you had some classic English style, almost test match conditions, where you just got to do the basics well, keep it simple, hit the top of off stump time and time again. And they didn't. And I thought the game was won and lost with both aspects of the new ball, really. England were poor. Finch and Warner played brilliantly, and then when we got to the other side of the equation, Stark with those key wickets of Root and Morgan was fantastic.
When Finch was dismissed on exactly 100, a few people were quite disappointed and even slightly concerned there. Did you ever look at that Australian innings and worry?
I think England fought back, there's no doubt about it. The position Australia were in after the start, they probably should have made 320, 340. So I think that's one of the areas that Aaron Finch and Justin Langer will be talking to the batsmen, the middle order, saying, again, we're seeing an example where we've had momentum. Finch and Warner have got us off to a flyer, and we haven't capitalised. But he was unreal today, Finch. Another 100 against England. He loves playing against England, so long may that continue, Athers.
I mean, he loves it, doesn't he? That's his 7th, I think, against England. And I don't know, I asked him whether this was his best. He didn't quite say it was, but I reckon a World Cup game against England at Lord's, conditions like that in the morning, fantastic.
Well, considering halfway through that first innings, they were, 35 overs, 185 for 2. They looked like they were doing some hard work, the England bowlers, and then they managed to restrict Australia towards the end of that innings.
It's a funny innings because in the conditions, 285 was an excellent score. But because Australia had got to 123 for none, and then 200 odd with, 10 overs left, you felt that Australia were going to get to 330. So it only felt a little bit below par simply from where Australia were. But in the conditions, 285, an excellent score.
Yeah, so the batting in general for Australia then, not a concern at all. In fact, a strength.
Well, I'd still say the middle order there's a bit of a concern. I think, does Kawaja bat 3? Does Smith bat 3? I think that'll be a talking point. Stoinis batting at number 6 isn't making as many runs as he would like. So, you know, there's a couple of areas where the Australian batting needs to improve. But again, I think the way they started their innings in tough conditions deserves a lot of credit.
Okay, well, there you have the first innings wrapped up, and at that stage we found ourselves with 1 or 2 people questioning whether 285 runs would be enough after 50 overs, and it turned out to be plenty.
Yeah, plenty because of Mitchell Starc initially, and Jason Behrendorff, but Behrendorff got the wicket of Vince. I think the 2 that Starc got, Root and Morgan, were absolutely key wickets, and the way that he got them, he was too quick for Joe Root, really.
Yeah.
And then there was a definite plan to Morgan to bounce him. 2 years ago, Mitchell Starc hit him flush on the head at Old Trafford and gave him concussion, so I think there are a few memories there for both players. And then, you know, he uses Starc really wisely. Go back to that game against West Indies, was it?
Yep.
When he brought him back to win the game there, and he brought him back later today to get rid of Ben Stokes, who was the only threat, really.
Now, it was interesting when we saw Starc doing his thing. Sean Pollock mentioned to me that he saw Starc's wife, Elisa, tweeting a little earlier, and it was good fun going to find this tweet, considering what happened after this. High fives to the English bloke who fired up Mitch with some banter at brekkie. On you, legend. Doesn't that just say a lot about the Australian mentality? Tell us more about how that works.
I say a bit about the English mentality. If some bloke's giving him a serve at breakfast.
And it fires them up.
Eating his poached eggs and copping a spray. Oh, look, I think you know you're going to get that no matter where you play around the world, and I think that's part and parcel. But there must have been something for Alyssa Healy to send that, to post that. There must have been something that did fire Mitchell Starc up. And it might have been about his teammate, it might have been, who knows what it might have been. But at the end of the day, I thought Starc was at his best today. I thought he pitched the ball up early, it swung, and again, he knows how to hit the stumps better than anybody else in the world.
And then, of course, 2 changes there in the selection for Australia today. No Zampa line came in, and then Behrendorff instead of Nathan Coulter-Nile. Is this the best Australian side they could select?
Yep, I think they've finally got the right 11. I think their balance is perfect. I think, if anything, with the ball, Australia's probably struggled a little bit with the brand new ball. So they bring in Behrendorff, who is an expert. That's his skill, that brand new ball bowling. It now means one of Australia's best bowlers, Pat Cummins, is our first change bowler, which is a great weapon to have. And then I think Nathan Lyon is an attacking spinning option as well.
Athers, what do you do when you're faced by Behrendorff? How do you neutralise that threat? For other teams looking at this now going, we still have to play
Well,
these
if I'm
guys.
honest, it's not quite the threat of a Mitchell Starc. He's not as quick, but he's shown that he can swing it today. He got Vince with a beauty. And he's also got that nice angle across with a bit of bounce. He's quite a tall bowler, so he's got a bit of bounce as well. But the key thing is that it gave that Australian bowling attack a sharper look today, because they had threat throughout the innings. So he had a good day. I thought Australia, you know, picked the right side.
Just to give you a roundup of exactly what went down, there you have Vince dismissed right at the top after the second ball, really destabilising, and that's pretty much Australia. You know, the story is that they take wickets and they take them early.
Yeah, well, every time you look at a scorecard, you look at the top 4. That's who you need, someone to make 100 in that top 4. And unfortunately for England, it wasn't the case. I think they missed Jason Roy. They'll want him back. But as you can see, as Athers just mentioned, it's the 2 left armers for Australia. That new ball execution was outstanding.
4 England wickets in 14 overs, and that early destabilising effect certainly didn't help them. Mitchell Starc, the most wickets so far at the ICC Cricket World Cup 2019, 3 clear of Jofra Archer, a man much talked about, but today, unfortunately, certainly not his day. So how much pressure on England, considering they only have 2 matches left, and it's 2 very big ones?
Big game tomorrow. Pakistan
New Zealand.
against New Zealand. If Pakistan win that game, then England are going to start to get very nervous. They're going to probably have to win their 2 last games. It's a bad place to play India Edgbaston because the pitch spins a little bit there. And then New Zealand up in Durham. So it's not terminal yet for England at all. It's still very much in their own hands if they win those last 2 games, but they're not in the position that they wanted to be, for sure.
Quickly, what do they change? How do they
I don't
go
think they
about
change
this?
anything. They've just got to play a bit better. It's the oldest cliche in the book, isn't it? Play a bit better. But I think they're picking the right side. They've got the best 11 players on the park. they've got a lot of success built up over 3 or 4 years. They just have to remember that and try and put it right.
Australia through to the semi-finals guaranteed. What do they sharpen up, tighten? What do they address preparing
Everything.
for that?
All three facets. Bat, ball, field, they can get better. This team still hasn't played 100 overs of brilliant cricket, and I know that's what Aaron Finch will be saying. Their goal's got to be, let's get better every single game. So the next game, no matter who they play, no matter what conditions they face, they've got to get better than where they were today.
And maybe no England fan should rile Mitchell Starc up over breakfast. Maybe
Keep
that's a
winding him
tip
up.
right there.
Keep winding him up.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. This was the review. Make sure that you keep in touch with us on social media. Use that hashtag CWC19. Follow at ICC, at Cricket World Cup. We'll bring you everything from behind the scenes. Tomorrow, New Zealand, Pakistan, a big match taking place out there. From us at Lorde's, it's a beautiful evening in London, and we bid you good night.
Very warm welcome to Lorde.
And it doesn't get much bigger than this.
You should call me before I go, 'cause I got options.
Finch is ready.
Don't think I don't.
Warner's ready.
There's something good though. And feel more. You should call me before I go. Stand by.
Well, that's a massive moment.
There's a million other people here tonight.
Out!
You know I can have a good one if I lie.
What a start for Australia.
You ain't got long to love me, there's no lie.
Beauty from Stark.
I can't stay on, stand by.
Stark has another.
Well, that is a punishing blow from Ben Stokes.
All the plans are coming together.
People here tonight.
What a performance from Australia.